My name's Mark Ritson, and this is the long and the short of it. When I say those words, long and short, most marketers now know what I mean. The long is about brand, is about going after everyone at the top of the funnel, usually in a more emotional way. And the short of it is the opposite. It's more product-focused, more targeted, more about activation and performance. The challenge, of course, is realizing you can't do both at the same time. The long and the short take place within a campaign, but not inside the same execution. And that's a key point for a medium like YouTube, because you can do both long and short very well, but usually with separate executions. One of the brands that's mastered that challenge of long and short within YouTube is Menulog. Let's talk to Simon, the CMO, and find out how he's met that challenge.
What a lot of people don't realise is Menulog actually is the original aggregator in Australia. We've been around for 15 years, so quite a long time. And it's only really been the last few years that the industry started to explode. And it's really because of a lot of these new entrants coming into the market. And at that point in time, Menulog had been around a while, had been doing okay, but the new entrants came in and, Menulog started looking a little bit dusty. And so that really became the beginning of this new concerted effort to reignite the brand for Australians.
So there was a lot going on, and a bad marketer would instantly respond with a hatful of different tactics. You didn't do that. You stepped back, you thought strategically, and you came up with a handful of objectives. What were they?
We had 4 key objectives that we set ourselves. So the first one was to revitalise the brand. The brand, like I mentioned before, was losing a bit of relevance.
Yep.
We really need to force reappraisal of the brand for Australians. The second objective was to broaden our audience. And so at the time, our target audience was suburban families. And so we very promptly changed that to anyone with a mouth. And then the third objective was to raise brand awareness and become top of mind as well. Fourth objective was a little bit more tactical, but really, really important for us, which was to grow our business outside of Friday and Saturday evenings.
3 of those objectives are the classic stuff of the long of it. You've got broadening out targeting to pretty much everyone. You've got this job of driving awareness, and you've got this other challenge of brand revitalization. I know YouTube wasn't the only tool that you used to deliver on those objectives, but it was a big part of it. How did you use YouTube to speak to those 3 longer objectives?
Yeah, well, we had a really fantastic brand asset in Snoop Dogg himself that ran for the UK market, but then we also took that and localised that in Australia. We also shot a version with him and local rugby league stars as well. And then we really focused from a YouTube point of view in buying 60-second long formats to kind of drive brand, and mix that up with a bunch of other YouTube, shorter formats and bumpers, 6 seconds and 15 seconds to really drive frequency of that message for YouTube. So that paired with TV just became a really fantastic combination.
Look, congratulations. It's brilliant creative, but as we both know, it's not just about that. Behind the creative and the wonderful music and Snoop and all of that, there was a clear set of objectives. Was the campaign effective? Did it actually work?
Yes, Mark, it did. YouTube really did spearhead our approach into tackling that younger demographic, like I said before. In the past, we tried it with TV and, didn't really have a lot of success with that. And so YouTube really helped in honing that. In terms of overall quantifiable brand results, our top of mind awareness, we grew overall for the total market, and we actually closed the gap on our competitors by 15 points. So really material gains there. And in terms of shifting brand perceptions, we improved our perception amongst the younger demographic for attributes like being innovative and being entertaining and being trendy. We improved those scores by at least 7 points as well in a relatively short period of time.
So you really refreshed the brand, using the YouTube work?
Yes, we did, Mark. We consider all those improvements very material gains in a relatively short space of time. But in addition to that, we didn't just benefit Menulog, we found a really strong benefit for the local artists that we worked with as well. So in addition to Menulog increasing our brand searches during that time by 57%, we actually found that the local artists that were featured in the campaign, searches for their names actually increased at least 10 times during the period of the campaign as well.
Amazing. The other all-important objective number 4, was the shorter one. It's more immediate, it's more commercial, and it's more targeted. But again, you were using YouTube. How did you use YouTube to answer the shorter challenge?
Yeah, so for the short of it, we were unable to use the Snoop execution for that, which was fine because we focused on working with local partners and then focused on kind of shorter, sharper, more targeted executions of that. And YouTube kind of lended itself perfectly for that kind of approach. So we worked with McDonald's, and for the McDonald's campaign, we used fast food audience targeting, and then we also targeted by day part as well using YouTube, which is really, really great. And
so much more pointy. You're really zooming into a particular group now.
Absolutely. Much more pointy, and specifically trying to improve those objectives that we had around growing orders outside of dinner. In terms of the results, there was growth in that non-dinner business that we have been trying to grow. And in fact, where we are now is that business outside of dinner is actually up 300% on pre-pandemic levels. And demonstrating really incredible ROI and sustainable long-term growth too.
What I thought was interesting as well, though, although there were very different executions between long and short, you were clearly linking those two campaigns very significantly. They don't look the same, but they clearly come from the same source. That was important, right?
100% it's important. Yeah, even though we weren't able to use Snoop Dogg himself, we focused on distinctive brand assets, and we borrowed on, the assets from that world of Snoop that was created from that main asset. And as an example, we featured the lowrider, in that world. We featured that in a number of other assets that we created, and it was in the McDonald's campaign as well. But the big focus on distinctive brand assets is a really big focus for our business that we find is very successful.
Because you have to join the long and the short together at some point, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we all know that for the long and the short to work really, really well, they've got to work hand in hand. You can't have too much long or too much short. You get the right balance, and and everything works harmoniously.
You've got a lot of value out of YouTube, obviously. It's been an important tactical tool for Menulog. How do you see yourself using it in the future?
Yeah, look, firstly, Mark, we probably don't view YouTube as a tactical tool for us at all. We actually see YouTube as a very important strategic part of our communication arsenal. And so we see YouTube as an always-on channel for us now to be able to achieve the long and the short objectives really, really well. So YouTube very much now is, part of the family in terms of how we do things as part of business as usual.
There is no superior medium. Each medium has its own strengths and weaknesses. Some are better at long, some are better at short. We've all seen that data. The thing that makes YouTube as an advertising medium unique is it's almost perfectly balanced. It's very good at long, it's also very good at short. That sounds like good news, but it's also a challenge for marketers, because I believe for them to get the most from YouTube, to get maximum effectiveness, they have to see YouTube both as a long brand building tool and separately as a shorter, more targeted activation tool, and then connect them together in an overall campaign with other media. But that long and the short combination, the attraction of being able to do both using YouTube, makes it a very potent part of the overall communications mix.